Yeah, I might have to punch though, honestly, on some of this shit.
This is Real Deal Sports Talk with KP, June 18th, 2018.
Them Negroes is rhyming sounded like Migos. I hate the fact that some people actually think we're rapping equals while it's obvious. When it comes to rhyming, I'm Spartacus, and I will slaughter kids for the simple joy of the audience. While you soft as vaginas with panty liners inside them, I think it's time for your monthly cycle, but I'm no gynecologist. I'm a fucking rhyming smith. I can forge a verses harder than a diamond is. I'm absolutely dominant. Do us all a big favor and crumple up that the paper you write and launch that shit into space like it was a fucking rocket. Cause ain't nobody rocking it. I got a zero tolerance for any whack shit in my environment. Call the firemen to pull the fire alarm. I hope you fireproof the booth, cause I'ma fire off these bars like a fireball. Trap music's influences impacted the movement, trying to bring it back to the future like Marty McFly. I'm sitting high in DeLorean, riding flying at 85. Travel back in time to...
How's everybody doing on this Monday? It is June 18th, 2018. This is Real Deal Sports Talk with me, KP. I'm glad that you guys can be here to listen. I'm glad that you guys are my listeners. I love talking sports with everybody. I love hearing the comebacks and the getbacks that you guys provide for me. On today's show, we are going to talk a little bit about the U.S. Open and the World Cup. Which one were you watching this weekend? You know, neither one of these are traditionally, you know, those big time watcher sports. You know, you don't got a lot of Americans sitting around watching football, watching soccer, and or watching golf at this point. Golf had its run when Tiger Woods was on top. Since then, it has definitely, you know, come back down from the heights it saw. World Cup, arguably the most popular, arguably the most popular sporting event in all of the world. It is bigger than the Super Bowl, bigger than the World Series, bigger than anything that we hold so dear in this country. The World Cup completely surpasses that on the number of teams, the number of countries, the number of viewers, the number of participants. It is the biggest thing worldwide. But for whatever reason, not that big here in the United States. Men's team, we're not even qualified for this year's World Cup. I was listening to some interesting stats on sports radio earlier today. The Zach and Stokely show here in Denver, Colorado, and they were giving statistics based on number of people who live in some of these World Cup countries compared to states and or cities here in the United States. Iceland, everybody is still in awe with Iceland. They are a great story. Not being a huge football fan, not a huge soccer fan, I have to say I'm truly impressed with what Iceland has done over the last couple international competitions. They have a population in Iceland of a little over 300,000 people, less than 350,000, I believe. We have cities here in Colorado, where I'm from. I'm based out of Westminster now. Was in Denver just a little while ago. Raised in Aurora, and Aurora, Colorado, where I was raised as a kid. That city in Colorado has more people in it than the entire country of Iceland. Yet they are there, taking on the big dogs, taking them to draws, making Argentina look like they aren't Argentina, taking away 11 shots from Messi, and they're doing their thing on the world stage. While the men's team, we're not even there. We didn't qualify. Colin Cowherd ripped the men's team this weekend with his tweet on them. I'm not going to paraphrase. I can't remember exactly what it said, but I basically said, hey, the United States men's national team's down for the count. You know, take your voice, down goes Frazier. Make it down goes U.S. men's national team. And that's what Colin Cowherd did to them this weekend. He called them out on their toughness, their willingness, their character, their arrogance. Not even there. And we have countries that have less people than states here that were able to field a competitive team. Oh, KP, come on now. Our best athletes don't play soccer here. Okay, let's go that route. Our best athletes have been sucked into the idea that you have to play football, you have to play baseball, you have to play basketball. Okay, let's go with that. We still have more kids in this country playing in Little League Soccer than any of those other sports combined. And we couldn't develop or get any of them to be successful enough to play in this world tournament, to be in the World Cup, when Croatia's there, Iceland's there, Uruguay has a dominant team. Colorado has more people than Uruguay. West Virginia has more people than Croatia. They can field a competitive team and we can't. Now, I don't know if you were watching the World Cup this weekend. Were you watching the U.S. Open this weekend? Which one was a bigger draw for you? As, you know, these aren't the big sports here, but they are relatively big sports. The U.S. Open's a big event. Players from worldwide come to participate in it. And the World Cup is the biggest event. Mexico caused seismic activity in Mexico City when they beat Germany, the defending World Cup champions, in a 1-0 match just the other day. That's the fun. That's the excitement, the thrill. That's the best for the fans. Now, soccer fans, football fans, y'all are crazy nuts. You do some stuff that to me is unacceptable. The fighting at the games, the racial slurs that go on all over Europe in their matches, the constant fighting and the murder that goes on where fans track down players throughout history. Like, just some stupid stuff where you're taking being a fan and the good stuff that can come from sports and you're showing the ugly side of humanity. Y'all have a lot of that. A lot. Now, you look at the World Cup. Where are we sitting right now? Who's leading each group? Group A. That's Russia, Uruguay, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia. Host country. They currently are leading that with 3 points. Tied with Uruguay. Iran is leading Group B with 3 points over Portugal, Spain, and Morocco. Portugal and Spain, you're going to have to get it up. Those are two teams everybody was expecting to do something, and you're down to Iran so far in your group. Group C, France, Denmark, Australia, and Peru. You got France and Denmark sitting at 3 points. Croatia, Iceland, Argentina, Nigeria. Everybody, I'm sure, expected Argentina to run away with this, except those individuals in Iceland and Croatia. And Croatia's leading Group D. Group E, Serbia, Brazil, Switzerland, Costa Rica. Now, Brazil, we all saw what happened in that match. Neymar was fouled 10 times. They were doing anything they possibly could to make sure he wasn't going to be the one that beat him. And Serbia's sitting on top of Group E right now. Sweden and Mexico are tied at the top of Group F. Belgium and England are on top of Group G. And Group H, I'm pretty sure they're kicking off their games starting today. And it seems to me, like, I don't know, I haven't watched a lot so far. I've seen a little bit of a game here and there. But it seems like we've had quite a few draws so far throughout this tournament. So I'm going to bring up the scores from the World Cup. I was looking at the wrong thing. I was looking at scores from all soccer, and that's definitely not what we need. So Russia started everything off for us, a nice 5-0 win over Saudi Arabia. On Friday, we had the Portugal and Spain draw, where Ronaldo had his hat trick on 4 shots. Basically saved it for Portugal at the end to tie it up. Iran and Uruguay both got their wins, 1-0 over Egypt and Morocco. Saturday, France. So we have 1 draw so far. Let's keep track of that and see if there really has been a lot of draws or if I'm just, watching too much of the same coverage. France beat Australia 2-1. Argentina and Iceland draw. Denmark beat Peru. Croatia beats Nigeria on Saturday. Moving to yesterday, on Sunday. Costa Rica goes down to Serbia. Germany loses to Mexico. 3rd draw. Brazil and Switzerland go to a draw. That brings us to today's games. Sweden has beaten South Korea. Belgium 3-0 over Panama, and England 2-1 over Tanzania. So we're at 3 draws so far. Moving into tomorrow's games where we have Colombia taking on Japan, Poland taking on Senegal, and Russia taking on Egypt. So I guess not that many draws, only 3 through the first 4 days of the tournament. It seems crazy to me that we're not getting a lot more of these 1-0 games or 2-1 games or something like that. You're seeing these draws on this level. And I guess maybe the bigger part of it is the teams that are going to a draw. Switzerland getting Brazil to a draw. Iceland getting Argentina to the draw. Spain and Portugal, that was just a good match. You kind of could have expected either a close match there, a draw possibility with those 2 teams. But it took a miraculous effort by Ronaldo for that to even happen. Messi, everybody goes, oh, after Ronaldo has his hat tricks, Messi comes back and does this. Well, Iceland held Messi on 11 shots to 0. His penalty kick that could have won it, no. He has not shown up in that first match in the World Cup. Now, do I expect him to miss 11 shots a game throughout the rest of Argentina's run? No, not at all. I expect Messi to be much better in this next match. I don't expect Ronaldo to have 3 goals in every match for Portugal. But it's the World Cup where we see the best of it when teams like Iceland, when teams like Mexico beat the defending champions, and their fans get to just be elated, be thrilled. When Uruguay won and they shut down schools so the kids could celebrate. Football does not mean that much in this country. Football, not football. Football does not mean that much. Baseball does not mean that much. Basketball does not mean that much. You might have kids who are going to miss school so they could go to a parade, but you're not going to have school districts shut down because your national team or your football team or your baseball team won a match. That'd be like, hey, Broncos fans here in Denver, your team just won the wild card. Kids are out of school celebrating. You are still in the tournament. Not going to happen. March Madness, not going to happen. UNC moves on from the first round. We're not shutting down schools in North Carolina. But internationally, with the World Cup, we see stuff like that. Now, don't forget, Circle of Stars Academy has their 2nd annual football camp coming up June 30th in Fort Collins at Fort Collins High School. This year they added in a cheerleader camp as well. The camp will be staffed by Colorado Crush, Denver Bronco, and former college and NFL greats. For more information, to see if there is still space available, reach out to Eric Anderson at 402-305-3724 or register online at circleofstarsacademy.com. If you can't make the one in Fort Collins and you like to travel, you're willing to travel, or you have family in another state and your kid can go spend time with them, they do have camps in Omaha, Sioux City, and Wichita also coming up this summer. So check them out, circleofstarsacademy.com. Reach out to Eric Anderson. He is one of the organizers. He is a guy who helped me get my start with the Colorado Crush when we were the official sports radio show of the team. I will be up there on June 30th covering the camp. We'll do a show. I'll try and get some interviews with some of the staff of the camp. It's going to be a great time. And even if you aren't able to make this one, I'm willing to bet they come back for their 3rd annual. Keep their information. Check out their website. See what they're into. Because it's not just these football camps that they do, okay? They're a good group, and I'm glad to be participating with them. Oh, some NBA offseason talk that's not necessarily about free agency. Now, I saw this report come up. It was on fadeawayworld.net, and it's by Brad Stevenson. He put this out June 15th, And it's the Minnesota Timberwolves have missed on a team worth of stars by one pick in the draft. And he goes through from the 2008 draft through the 2014 draft and details who the Minnesota Timberwolves could have drafted had they, picked the right person at their spot, not made trades or what have you. So in 2008, the Timberwolves traded their third pick, O.J. Mayo, for Kevin Love. And then Russell Westbrook was the fourth pick by Oklahoma City Thunder. So they drafted O.J. Mayo. They trade him for Kevin Love. Westbrook's the next pick. So they could have had Russell Westbrook in 2008. In 2009, they selected Ricky Rubio 5th and Johnny Flynn 6th. Steph Curry was the 7th pick by the Golden State Warriors. So they could have had Steph Curry and Russell Westbrook. Then, with the 18th pick, they selected Ty Lawson and traded him away for a future first-round pick to Denver. And Jeff Teague was selected with the 19th pick by Atlanta. So now you're looking at Westbrook, Teague, and Steph Curry they could have had. In the second round, they used their 45th pick and selected Nick Calathes. Cleveland then selected Danny Green with the 46th pick. We've all seen Danny Green do what he did for the Spurs in the finals, hitting all the threes. So Teague, Curry, Danny Green, and Westbrook. And we're only through 2009. In 2010, they chose Wesley Johnson with the 4th pick. DeMarcus Cousins was the 5th pick by Sacramento. 2011, Minnesota selects Derek Williams with the 2nd pick. Utah selects Enes Kanter with the 3rd pick. 2013, Timberwolves drafted Shabazz Muhammad with the 14th pick. Giannis Antetokounmpo, sorry I can't say your last name, sir, was chosen by Milwaukee with the 15th pick, the Greek Freak. And they also traded away their 26th pick in this draft, as well as Malcolm Brown to Golden State for a future second-rounder, and Rudy Gobert was selected with that 27th pick right after that. In 2014, Minnesota drafted Glenn Robinson III. Looked promising with the 40th pick in the second round. Well, Denver drafted future All-Star Nikola Jokic with the 41st pick, and we've all seen what he's been able to do with the Nuggets. So he summarizes at the end, the Minnesota Timberwolves could have potentially had a team consisting of Steph Curry, Russell Westbrook, DeMarcus Cousins, the Greek Freak, Jeff Teague, Enes Kanter, Rudy Gobert, Nikola Jokic, and Danny Green, all within a 6-year span, all drafted one pick after them. I'm sorry, but if I'm a Timberwolves fan, I'm sitting back. I'm not worried about this Jimmy Butler, Andrew Wiggins stuff anymore. I'm sitting there going, our management sucks. I can't believe who we could have been. We've made these trades that we didn't need to make because we could have been stacked. We could have been the team winning championships. We could have been the team going up against King James in the finals each and every year. We could have been the team. Now, it would have been hard to keep all of these guys and pay all of these guys, but think about it. You wouldn't have had to if you had drafted all of them. They would have been on short-term deals, 3-4-year deals. Yeah, we're going back 8 seasons, so now you got a couple guys on max deals. You got a couple of these guys on mid-range contracts, and you got a couple of guys still on their rookie contracts. This team could have been stacked. They would have had scoring, athleticism, above the rim, guys who could dish, guys coming off the bench, guys protecting the rim, guys getting triple-doubles. It would have been something else to watch. And I'm glad this is a good story. That's an interesting story that has nothing to do with Kawhi Leonard or LeBron James or the Cleveland Cavaliers or the Boston Celtics or the Spurs or the Lakers. This is about Minnesota. And just not being able to foresee the future. which is very hard to do in sports. Guys get it wrong all the time. We have busts before they even play games sometimes. But the list of guys that they could have had all on one team, if they would have just drafted them instead of the person they picked, because none of these guys were drafted before. It's not like something had to fall to them. These guys were all picked after they picked. And even if you don't keep all of them, Steph, Russ, DeMarcus, Giannis, Teague, Cantor, Gobert, Jokic, and Danny Green. Say by now in 2018 season, you only have half of those guys. You still have a solid team. Unbelievable how we can go back and guys can go back and find stuff like this. And if you haven't read his piece, again, this was published by Brad Stevenson, June 15th, on fadeawayworld.net. So go read it. I mean, give Brad his due credit. This is a great story. He was able to go through and find this out. I'm truly impressed and blown away. That's probably one of the best draft make-up, do-up thing stories that I've ever heard. And everybody knows in the sports world, the NFL does it all the time. Let's redraft this year's draft. Let's redraft that year's draft and that year's draft. And what if we change this? Who would they pick now in hindsight, looking back? What would 2011 been like? None of those scenarios equal what the Timberwolves could have had if they would have drafted the player after them each year. Some of them all-time greats. Steph Curry, all-time great shooter. Russell Westbrook, all-time great scorer and competitor. DeMarcus Cousins could be an all-time great. He shows glimpses of being an all-time great. He's got a skill set that could be all-time great. And unfortunately this year he had the Achilles injury. And in years past he's had, maturity issues in my opinion. Not being able to deal with guys and be professional and treat basketball like a business. But what a story. What a story. We have not talked baseball on this show in a while. So let's look in. Remember, at the beginning of the season, I gave you guys 4 teams that I was going to look at throughout the year. 2 on the National League side, 2 on the American League side, that I thought had the potential to be some of the better stories moving on throughout the season. And on the National League side, I gave you the Rockies and the Cubs. And on the American League side, I gave you the Angels and the Yankees. Some of it was due to players, off-season stuff, the excitement, the names they added, the names they didn't add, things like that. And the Rockies started out pretty good. They've been great on the road. Their bullpen that I touted at the beginning of the season has completely fallen apart into the worst bullpen in baseball. $120, $115 million they spent on the bullpen, and they've got the highest ERA in baseball. The Cubs are hoping Yu Darvish, as he comes back from injury, is going to give them a little bit more of what they were looking for as they battle for that first place spot there in the Central. The Angels, Ohtani has gone down. That's hurt them a little bit. But they have the Astros and the Mariners who are playing out of their mind in front of them in the West. And the Yankees are competing right there with the Red Sox. Mike Trout has been doing an amazing job, again, as the best player in baseball for the Angels. Stanton is slowly starting to get his swing going. Sanchez is getting going. Some of these young guys the Yankees have are going. Judge is just part of the mix. None of them hitting outrageous numbers so far. But let's look in on what else is going on. Stats-wise, standings, things like that. So if we go to the stats, current stats right now, individual leaders. Matt Kemp for the Dodgers, batting average leader. John Segura for Seattle is the batting average leader on the American League side. Home run leader for each league, Mike Trout and Bryce Harper. 2 of the young studs in baseball. RBI leaders in both leagues. You have Trevor Story for the Rockies and J.D. Martinez for the Red Sox. Wins leaders, you have Kluber, who we talked about last week, and Max Scherzer. And actually, Severino for the Yankees has gotten his name in that mix now, too. ERA leaders, you have Verlander and DeGrom, who, I'm sorry, you Mets, you need to blow it up. Go ahead and trade him to a contender and get yourself some prospects, because your season's going nowhere, and he's having probably one of the better seasons in all of baseball, and it's going to go completely unnoticed. And the saves leaders, you have Edwin Diaz in Seattle and Brad Hand in San Diego. Now, as far as team, let's go team pitching and team batting for each conference. Team batting in the American League, you have Houston is pulled ahead of Boston in that category. For a while, Boston was leading every category in batting in the American League. However, now Houston has climbed in. Top 5 in batting in the American League. You have Houston, Boston, the Yankees, Cleveland, and the Angels. If you go over to the National League side, top 5 teams batting-wise, you have Atlanta, Chicago, the Dodgers, Pittsburgh, and I'm not quite sure how Colorado gets in there. Maybe they started hitting a little better. You got a 248 team batting average, so that is up from the 235 they were at. Bats have been coming around a little bit better for Colorado. They're way behind in runs scored. Their run differential is unacceptable, in my opinion. Team pitching for the National League top 5, you have the Cubs, Washington, Milwaukee, Arizona, Atlanta. And again, the Cubs are getting Yu Darvish back, so that's something to watch there for the Cubs. Can that pitching help them, stave off Milwaukee there in the Central? On the American League side, your top 5 pitching teams are Houston, Boston, the Yankees, the Angels, and Seattle. The only team in there, the Angels right now, really not contending for a playoff spot. Boston and the Yankees, one of those teams is going to be the East, and one of them's looking like they're going to be a wild card. Houston and Seattle, one of those teams is going to win the West. The other one probably gets the wild card. The Angels right now are the odd man out in that group. But they aren't far behind. They can get back into it. They can make a run and be right there with Houston and Seattle in the AL West. And we'll do fielding. Why not? Top 5 fielding teams. Again, you have your defending champion Houston Astros right there at the top. The Angels, the Royals, the Twins, and the Tigers are the top 5 on the American League side. On the National League side, your top 5 teams fielding-wise are Arizona, Colorado, the only thing really keeping Colorado in it at this point. Washington, Miami, who's got no talent left, and Atlanta, who to me has been a huge surprise of a team this season. I did not see Atlanta being able to pull off, at this point in the season, being a first-place team in the NL East. But here they sit. We're at June 18th. And the Braves have a 3.5-game lead over Washington, who I expected to honestly run away with this division this year. Milwaukee's got a half-game lead on Chicago right now. They've played what it looks like 2 more games, or 1 more game, and have that half-game lead. St. Louis has been here and there throughout the season, but they could make it interesting in the Central. And then the West is wide open. The San Diego's 6.5 out, but the way these teams are playing, who knows? If they hit a streak, they're in first place in 2 weeks. Arizona, again, they've been playing real hot up until recently. They lost their last 2. The Dodgers are finally starting to hit their stride a little bit in the West. They're 7-3 over their last 10, tying the Diamondbacks in that effort. San Francisco won a game, and the Rockies, it's their June swoon. I don't really believe in sports curses. I'll joke about it with the Lions that the refs have something against them, that the NFL has something against them. But this Rockies team, you guys had the door wide open. And to this point in the season, you have not been able to even step through it to be able to close it and say, we're going on to be champs. You have gotten in your own way every step of the way. You're giving up 5-run innings. You're not hitting. You're hitting there. You're not hitting there. You're not winning at home. You have a losing record at home and one of the best road records in baseball. Your run differential, you're at negative 44. 23-18 on the road, 11-19 at home. In a division, you find yourself now after 2 weeks, 5 games back, when 2 weeks ago you had a 1.5 game lead in this division. Very disappointed right now in the Rockies. Bud Black needs to get it together. Because right now I'm sitting there, if I'm management, going, this team has everything it needs to win this division. We have hitting. We are one of the top fielding teams in baseball. We spent all this money on our bullpen in the offseason. We expected the young starters to be doing their thing. John Gray, I'm sorry, pull him from the rotation. Put him in the pen, send him down to assignment, get him off the mound. He is mentally weak. Yeah, sure, he's going out there each and every start. He's given a little something. But all we hear is he's got this great stuff. He's a dominant pitcher. He can be an ace. He's got 2 or 3 pitches. But we don't see that. We see him giving up runs. We see him throwing his head back, rolling his eyes. No focus, no killer instinct. Complaining about where the strike zone is instead of seeing it and using it. Giving guys pitches to launch. Meanwhile, Arizona, they've been a streaky team. They're first place. They won a bunch, then they lost a bunch. Then they won a bunch, then they lost a bunch. Then they won some, now they're losing some. Los Angeles lost a lot, and now they're starting to come back and play a little bit like the Los Angeles team we expected to see. So as far as the teams that I said let's pay attention to at the beginning of the season, Rockies, they've definitely made it interesting. They've made it interesting. At one point, they were first place. Now they find themselves in third and completely out of the wild card. Or fourth, excuse me. The Cubs, half game out, getting their big-time free agent, Yu Darvish, coming back. Braves, I guess I could have. Nobody really saw that coming. Nobody saw the Seattle. They're a 1.5 games back of Houston right now, but Houston, they've won 11 out of their last 12 games. Los Angeles, they lost Ohtani. They're sitting 9.5 games behind the defending champion Houston Astros. It's going to be hard for them to get back in it. And then the Yankees, a ton of strikeouts, but they're scoring a ton of runs. They've had some young kids come in. They're dominating at home. Opposite of the Rockies, they're 26-11 at home. Still a great road record, 20-10 on the road. But their run differential, plus 98. Not negative 44. Not negative 44. That's not going to get you into playoffs. That's not going to help you slam the door on your division and win your first division title in team history. It's just not going to happen. Now again, Circle of Stars Academy will be holding their second annual Circle of Stars football camp on June 30th at Fort Collins High School. This year they will also be having their cheerleader camp. The camp staff will consist of former college and pro football greats, along with Colorado Crush and Denver Bronco cheerleaders. To register, you can either contact Eric Anderson at 402-305-3724 or register online at circleofstarsacademy.com. Now, I know space is limited. So check it out. If you don't get into the one in Fort Collins this year, I'm sure they will be back, but they also have some other camps coming up in the surrounding area and states over the rest of the summer. And we have all of that information posted on the website, realdealsportstalkwithkp.com. You can access our text line, 720-515-5597. Email address is on the site. There's a way to reach out and contact us on the site. The blog is on the site. Pictures of different sporting events and things that we got going on are on the site. Partners of the show, friends of the show. We have our Check Us Out section for Vance Johnson, the real estate doctor Chad Nash, Vivid Scientific and Don Banks, the Barbarians, Marcus Ogden, the Idaho Phoenix, all of that stuff there. We have a Get Help page for the National Addiction Hotline, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, and the National Sexual Assault Hotline. So check it out. Let us know what we're doing, what you want to see. We're considering adding a video of the day section, or even just top sports videos type thing to the website. But reach out to us. Let us know what you would like to see there. Check out the Circle of Stars Football Academy. It is coming up June 30th at Fort Collins High School in Fort Collins, Colorado. All right. The Eagles, the Philadelphia Eagles, make a very classy move. Now, you don't normally associate class with the Eagles or with Philly or with the fans in Philly. Football knowledge, sports knowledge, passion, excitement, sure. Aggression, sometimes a little fanaticism over being a fan, some drunken stupidity, throwing batteries at Santa Claus. Some ugly stuff is normally what you associate with Philly and their sports fans, outside of just pure sports knowledge. You got to give them credit on that. They have their sports knowledge down. They are true fans. They love their games. But they've also had some ugly moments in sports history. However, this week, as the Eagles celebrated their Super Bowl victory, they did one of the classiest things I have seen any franchise in any pro sport do. And the Philadelphia Eagles had a long-time assistant to the head coach. I can't remember what her exact title was, but she was there like 3 decades, around 30 years or more. Chip Kelly comes in and fires her, a lady by the name of Carol Wilson. Well, this week, the Philadelphia Eagles, in a very classy move, sent Carol Wilson her Super Bowl ring. Didn't have to do it. Wasn't required to do it. You hear these teams, they give one to everybody who works for the organization. She had been fired by the previous regime, Chip Kelly, after working there forever for every coach who had come in. And they said, you know what? For what this means to our organization, for what you meant to our organization, for the time you spent here, we are also going to give you, Miss Wilson, a Super Bowl ring. And in this time where we are so divided, in this time where on social media something nice is posted or something good that somebody did is posted, and most people's reactions are to spit vitriol or try and devil's advocate the situation or but something. This one, it's one of the reasons I like sports. It's one of the reasons I like talking about sports. It's one of the things where sports can warm your heart and bleed over into other parts of society and other parts of life. So Carol Wilson, not only did you deserve this, but I'm happy for you. And I'm happy that the Eagles organization, with all the press they've already made, not going to the White House and then having Trump flip it and act like, ooh, I canceled it. For the political stance your players are making for the betterment of all people of this country, I salute you. Congratulations. That is an amazing thing that you did for Carol Wilson. And I'm honestly, I'm more of an Eagles fan now than I was before I heard this story. All right, wrapping it back up to the beginning of the show where we were talking about the World Cup or the U.S. Open and which one you were watching. I can guarantee more people were watching the World Cup worldwide. However, in this country, I've heard a lot of people haven't watched any of the World Cup. We're not even in it. I don't have a team I'm rooting for, so I'm not even going to watch if the U.S. isn't playing. Well, that's a very narrow-minded view. Very narrow-minded. So maybe some of you narrow-minded people decided to tune into the U.S. Open this weekend, where we saw a guy win the U.S. Open shooting over par. +1. We saw Phil Mickelson implode and hit a moving ball. We saw a backlash come back from him hitting a putt that had not stopped moving. He knew it was a rules violation. He also knew he was sick of how he was playing, and he didn't really care. His wife comes out and says, oh, he was willing to withdraw. I'm sure he was. I don't want to be out there looking like that as Phil Mickelson playing in the U.S. Open that bad. Tiger Woods couldn't make a putt. He imploded. Plus 10, didn't even make the cut for the weekend. Then Brooks Koepka wins his second straight. He's the first guy in 29 years to win 2 straight U.S. Opens. I would have thought Tiger had done it, but no. Ricky Fowler shot 19 shots better on Sunday than he did on Saturday. So I don't know what happened at the U.S. Open. I didn't watch it, honestly. I watched no coverage of the U.S. Open. I watched some coverage of the World Cup. So if you ask me which one I watched the World Cup this weekend. I watched a little bit of the Iceland-Argentina match. I watched some of the Portugal and Spain match. And I watched a little bit of the Mexico-Germany match. And by a little bit, I mean a little bit. It probably totaled 10 minutes combined for all three. But that 10 minutes, for me, outdid the 0 minutes I spent watching the U.S. Open. Now, obviously, because of my show, I followed it. I wanted to see who won, what kind of storylines were coming out of it. And this is why I'm sorry, I don't think golf is one of those games where you have to be some great athlete. You just need to have time to practice. You have to know what you're doing. Bubba Watson is one of the better golfers, and he is self-taught. John Daly was one of the better golfers in the mid-90s, and he was a chain-smoking alcoholic at the time. If you have enough time and enough money to where you can just go golf, you can get yourself to play +1 on a golf course. You can get yourself to be 19 strokes better on one day than the other day. You can go +10. Shoot, when I played in college, I've played golf for a total of, I think, 3 years solid in my life. 3 years in college. And I was down to I think 8 over par was my best round towards the end. I mean, that would have been right there in the U.S. Open. I would have been on the leaderboard. And I do not consider myself a golfer. In fact, when Tiger was doing his thing, that's the only time golf was really, really interesting to me. My grandfather, Warren Mitchell, Hall of Fame coach here from Lyman High School in Colorado, he loved golf. I watched golf as a kid because of him. I drove the golf cart, and my interest in golf came from him. I like playing golf. It's fun to go out there and hit a bucket of balls, get your aggression out, talk to the guys, network. But if I had to pick U.S. Open golf or World Cup soccer, I'm going World Cup soccer. That's real talk. You know how we do. Until next time, be real.
Yo, Denver City life living every night getting it. All I see is green like it's night vision. My sight's different. My type driven. These niggas risking a life sittings over white flipping, but I ain't with it. I'm light skinned it. My mind gifted, intelligence in my disposition, aristocratic image, and not to mention I'm nice with it. The ice drip over cardigan sweaters, tight fitting, white linen. This is the type of shit that entice women. The fly shit that I'm on is passing the sky's limits. Why it's not surprising to see that all of these guys living. I'm vivid, solemnly swear the rhyme exquisite with the time I'm giving. My mind flying, define physics. I stay smooth like sipping out of champagne flutes. Always way cool, but it ain't a thing, just the flame cruise. You lame dudes, this that shit that you can't do. That's why your main boo steady watching me how I make moves.
My city light got me way above the clouds. Baby, audience and picture every time I draw a crowd. I hold my weight with these bars, so make no mistake. I get through cooking like Chef Curry and Golden State. I'm motivated, I'm taking off moving vertically. Saying that they were seeing me literally, that's absurd to me. Virtually murdering MCs on purpose. Cutting their body parts into pieces is verbal surgery. You say you hot, but you ain't burning to the third degree. Time to bring some urgency in the state of emergency. There's no comparison to us, that's way embarrassing. Making something from nothing like ancient Native Americans. Man, listen, I'm undergoing a transition. My transmissions are filled with nothing but ambition. No remorse on these rappers like a Roman force. Snuck into the game on these suckers inside the Trojan horse.
to the game on these suckers inside the Trojan horse.